record, we'll take up CR 19-25-0097, State of Idaho versus Alan Douglas Bruce. Mr. Bruce is present, along with his counsel, Mr. Archibald, and his other counsel, Mr. Thomas. For the state, we have Mr. Rogers. This is time set for a preliminary hearing. Mr. Archibald, how are we to proceed today?
We're ready to proceed.
Okay. Let me, there are 4 felonies. But I always go over this just to make sure we're all on the same page. But the felonies, let's see, this is count 1 is murder, felony, punishable up to life. Count 2 is destruction of evidence. Count 3 is failure to report death to law enforcement. Count 4 is unlawful possession of a firearm, of course, persistent violator on there too. Those are 4 counts we're proceeding on.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr.
I understood there may be an amended complaint. I don't know if an amended complaint was filed or if we're just proceeding on the complaint from May 13th.
I did not see an amended complaint. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're intending to amend the part 2 of the complaint of the persistent violator. We're waiting on the paperwork. So as now we'll take that up in district court if it gets to district court
Okay.
and file the notice of persistent there.
So just the 4 initial felonies.
Yeah.
Is that all right, Mr. Archibald?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, very good. Let me just ask, are there any preliminary motions before we begin?
There is from the state 2 motions, I guess.
Okay.
One is the usual, if we could ask the witnesses to leave the courtroom that have been subpoenaed.
How many witnesses do you have?
Today we have 6 listed. I don't know if we'll need all of them, but just in case we.
We'll let you have your officer, and then your first witness can stay. Why don't the others, we'll ask them to, and not to step out into the hall. Please go downstairs, because they can just, I don't want anyone listening at the door.
Okay.
This is a different courtroom.
Yeah.
So let's have anyone that's here for the state that isn't the first witness, if you could step outside. Any motions?
And the other one was to ask for our lead officers.
I'll allow that.
Other than that, we would call Deputy Ethan Kelly to the stand.
Well, let me make sure, Mr. Archibald, any preliminary motions before we begin?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
One for me, Judge. Can I get the county's Wi-Fi so that I can get in my phones?
Yes.
You have to guess the password.
Right.
I just assume, am I going to be addressing you, Mr. Archibald, or Mr. Thomas? And if you change up, just let me know so I know who to address.
Yes, both of us will do some examining today, and so, but we'll let you know.
Okay. I just don't want either of you to feel slighted. Mr. Rogers, call your first witness, please.
We would call Deputy Ethan Kelly to the stand.
All right, Deputy Kelly, if you'd please come forward, come up into the well, face Madam Clerk, raise your right hand, be sworn, please. Watch your step there, to have a seat there. Once you're settled, please speak directly into the microphone so we get a good recording. Mr. Rogers, when you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. Deputy, are you employed?
Yes, sir.
Where are you employed at?
With the Custer County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed there?
Just over 2.5 years.
And what are,
Back up, Mr. Rogers, and I don't mean to manage this, just for the record, could we have his name and his felony?
yes. Could you state your name and spell your name for the record?
Ethan Kelly, ETHAN KELLY.
And what are your duties at Custer County Sheriff's Office?
Currently, I'm a patrol deputy.
What does that consist of?
It consists of, well, we're a small department, so it consists from anything to just being out on patrol and taking initial calls for service up to investigating crime as well.
And what's your training and experience as an officer?
I'm a post-certified deputy, so I've been through Idaho Post Academy and then gone through trainings that we've put on here at the Sheriff's Office as well, post-certified training. So that'd be about where I'm at.
And were you employed in those duties in May of 2025?
I was.
Were you involved in an investigation with an Alan Bruce?
Yes.
What was your involvement in that investigation?
Initially, I was assisting with initial reports of a missing person. And then from there, it led into a homicide investigation.
And was the report of missing person with Alan Bruce?
A missing Patrick Shelton was reported as missing.
What was your actions for the investigation?
So initially, we received, we requested for pings on Shelton's phone from the phone provider, the cellular provider. And so initially, I was sifting through what numbers came in and kind of the incoming and outgoing calls and locations. And then from there, I initially went to speak with Alan Bruce at his property because he was the last known person to have been with him.
And did you go speak with Mr. Bruce at that time?
I did.
And what was your conversation?
Essentially, at that point, we were just trying to find whereabouts of Patrick Shelton. He was a missing person, so it was a pretty brief conversation. Asked Alan if he knew anything about it, which he said he knew no one had been able to find him, but he did not really say anything further. We kind of asked him if he knew of some likely areas that Shelton might be, and if memory serves, he told us Bayhorse area was the only area that he knew Shelton to go retrieve firewood.
I'm sorry, retrieve firewood.
Firewood, yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what date that was you spoke to him about that?
I would have to review my report real quickly to be able to tell you that date.
Was it this year?
Yes,
What month?
it was in, should have been May.
And then after you were finished talking to him about the firewood, was that your last dealings with him, Mr. Bruce?
On that day it was,
Okay. Then did you have more investigation to do?
yes.
What was that?
So, in looking up what numbers contacted and so forth, that Shelton's phone was in contact with, we were trying to pinpoint basically location and so forth. So there was continuing that, and then later, I'm trying to remember the exact day it was, I believe it was 2 days later, the sheriff's office received a warrant to search Alan Bruce's property. And so I was assisting ISP with investigation at this point, and I asked Alan if he'd be willing to come to the sheriff's office for an interview.
And how did you ask him, in person or on phone? Or?
This was over the phone.
Do you remember what day that was? Off
It's
the
in
top
my
of your-
report.
Okay.
I do not right off the top of my head.
And when you spoke to him on the phone, what was that conversation?
I kept it pretty casual. I let Alan know that ISP was interested in asking him some more questions regarding Patrick Shelton being missing, and asked him if he'd be willing to come down. And he stated his truck was broken down and he would
Can I interrupt you there? What do you mean by come down?
come down to the sheriff's office to be interviewed.
I'm from Blackfoot, so I don't know. It's gotta be clear on this stuff. So come down to the sheriff's office, and then what was his response?
His response was that his truck was currently broken down. He was actively working on it. So he did not have a means of transportation to get him there.
And what happened next?
I believe we ended our conversation at that point. I contacted ISP, talked to them, and they asked if I'd be willing to give him a ride. So I called Alan Bruce back and offered to give him a ride to the sheriff's office.
And what did he say?
He initially said he was kind of reluctant to, but ultimately he said, yeah, he would come down. So I told him I'd be there in about 5 minutes to pick him up.
And did you go do that?
I did.
And when you picked him up, did you have anybody with you?
No, I was alone.
And how did you, what car were you in?
I was in my patrol truck, marked patrol truck.
And does your patrol truck have 2 doors or 4 doors?
It has 4 doors.
And is it a regular patrol truck? Does it have a cage in the back?
It does have what we call a half cage. So basically, one of those seats is a secured area to transport.
And where did he sit?
He sat in the front passenger seat, so not where I would put anyone who was in custody or anything like that. He just sat up front as I would with a friend.
And you picked him up, and then where did you take him?
I took him directly to the sheriff's office. Basically, across 9th Street is where we have an interview room, and so I took him over to that location.
And what happened at that point?
2 ISP detectives came over and introduced themselves, and they conducted the interview. I was not present for that.
Was that the end of your investigation or end of your time with Alan Bruce?
Until the end of the interview, because I had told Alan that I would be happy to give him a ride to and back to his residence. So after they had completed their interview, I came back over there to provide him with a ride back to his house.
Did you wait outside?
Did I wait outside?
During the interview, you said you didn't go in. Where were you?
I went over into the sheriff's office, which is a separate building.
And about how long did you wait?
This would just be a guess. I don't have that time, but I want to say 45 minutes-ish in there.
And then after that 45 minutes, what happened?
So I was notified they completed their interview, and so I went back over. Alan stepped out of the interview room, and I let him know I could give him a ride home.
And how did he respond to that?
No particular response. I did at that point tell him I had heard some of the line of questioning and so forth, so I was concerned he could be a little confrontational because some of those questions were accusational in nature, or could be viewed as such. And so I told him I was going to have him ride in the secured area of my pickup just for my safety, and he responded to this that he was not willing to sit back there. Every time he sits back there, he goes to jail, and I told him that wasn't the case. But he still refused to sit back there. So I requested one of the ISB detectives to accompany me, and then I let Alan sit up front again, just like he came.
And so he sat up front with you, and what happened? Did you take him back?
And then I took him back to his residence. At this point, there was a search warrant actively being served on his place. And so once we got to his place, he remained in the truck with me in the front seat until ISP detectives came and got him.
Were you part of the search warrant search?
Not particularly. I was on the property when I brought him back, and then I remained on that property as it wrapped up because I was sitting with Alan for a little bit in the truck. But no, I was not active part in searching or anything.
Were you a part of that investigation at all with the search warrant?
Yes, a part of it.
What part?
Some initial information we had received regarding the fact that Alan possessed a firearm. And
Why was that unusual?
Because at a prior date, not long before this, I had been out to Alan Bruce's on a call for service. And during that time, just as an officer safety, kind of standard officer safety, I had asked Alan if he had anything in his pockets. He stated he didn't, or excuse me, he said he did. And to that, I responded, "You have a pistol in there?" And he said, "No, they don't let me play with guns." So that led me to believe he was not permitted to possess a firearm. And then through this investigation, we had discovered on his criminal history that he had been charged prior and convicted of possessing a firearm while being a prohibited person.
Do you remember where that charge was?
I believe it was out of California.
And where is his property located?
It's on Highway 93. Technically, his property is part of a larger ranch. I believe the arrangement is the ranch owner has let him basically reside on kind of a dry corner of an irrigated field. Pivots are circular and the fields are generally more angular, so leaves dry corners and so forth. And I believe that is his living arrangement.
What county is that in?
Custer County.
And the individual you gave a ride to that day, do you see him in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Could you point out where he is sitting and describe what he is wearing?
He's sitting at the defendant's table wearing orange and he's got a black vest on.
And what is his name?
Alan Bruce.
I don't believe I have any further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Archibald or Mr. Thomas, any cross on this?
Briefly, Judge. So, Deputy Kelly, you indicate that the defendant said that the Bay Horse area is the place where Patrick would retrieve firewood. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is that where you found the truck?
No, sir.
Where did you find the truck?
So I did not locate the truck, but the sheriff's office located it up near Big Hill, which is heading up kind of Custer motorway area. So definitely a different location.
How far are the two locations?
Well, they'd be two different. So you would, to get to Bay Horse, you would head south on 93 and take Highway 75 down to get to Bay Horse. To get to the Big Hill location, you would drive up Main Street here and head up. They're in the same general locate or direction from CHALLIS, but they're in different locations.
Okay. You talked about you asking Mr. Bruce if he would come in for an interview, and he said that his truck had broken down, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he hung up the phone with you, and the two of you left on good terms. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you called him back. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you asked him if he would come in for an interview, and if you'd be able to drive him.
Correct. On our first conversation, he didn't allude to not being willing to come into the interview. He gave the truck as being broken down as a reason he wasn't able to do that.
Okay.
So yes.
And so you said that he was reluctant to come to the interview. Did you happen to record that phone call?
I believe I would have to check that. I cannot tell you one way or another.
Is that generally your protocol?
Generally, I would record conversations, yes, during investigations.
And at this time, you had knowledge about Mr. Bruce, because you indicated that they were at that time about ready to serve a search warrant. Right?
Correct.
And you had been involved in the early stages of getting that search warrant, right?
In parts of it, yes.
Okay. So at the time that you were talking to him, you would be actively engaged in the investigative process.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you picked up Mr. Bruce at his place of residence, is that right?
That is correct.
And do you know how long he had been living at that place of residence?
I do not know when he first started living there, no, sir.
And how long did you say you were on the force here?
For just over 2.5 years,
Okay. Had he been there the entire time that you?
as long as I've known him.
Okay. And you didn't Mirandize him, is that correct?
I did not.
Do you know if anybody else Mirandized him?
Like I said, I wasn't in the room for the interview or anything, so I do not know.
Okay. And do you have a body cam?
I do.
Was that on and active when you picked up Mr. Bruce?
I believe it was.
And would it have been on and active the entire drive over to the
Yes.
sheriff's office?
Yes.
So you said you took him to the sheriff's office on 9th Street, and that's different than the sheriff's office across the parking lot here?
No, it's the same sheriff's office. So this cross street here coming off of Main Avenue is 9th Street. So the technical physical address is 130 South 9th Street.
Okay.
Now the interview room is in a separate building, which technically has a separate address.
And where's the interview room?
It's directly across 9th Street. So within walking distance, right across 9th Street.
Okay. And is that where Patrick's vehicle was being stored in that area?
At the time, memory-wise, if we had it there, yes, but in that general building complex is where
That's what I'm asking.
where the impound is, yes.
Okay, that the impound and that's where the interview room is in that same building.
It's connected.
Okay. All right. And you were asked by these two Idaho State Police detectives to bring him from his home to that particular location?
Correct.
And you said it was about a 45-minute interview with Idaho State Police and that you came back over to the sheriff's office and just waited there?
Yeah, the time frame's a rough guesstimate at this time, but
And did the Idaho State police officers call you and say, hey, he's ready to be picked up?
essentially, yes.
Okay. And was there any communication between you and them that they were, did you know that they were executing the search warrant at the time?
I did.
And did you contact the Idaho State police officers about, hey, what are we gonna do if I drive this guy back to his house, he's gonna know we're executing a search warrant? Was there any
Yeah.
talk of that?
There was discussion about that, yes.
Tell me a little bit about that discussion.
Essentially, it was that we were gonna conduct the search warrant during an interview. It's a safety thing, largely an officer safety thing, where if we're gonna go in on a search warrant to someone's residence and they're there, it's a lot greater risk to us, so we were able to conduct the interview at the same time. That was something that needed done. So the discussion essentially was that we'd be conducting the interview, we could do the search warrant, and then depending on outcomes and so forth, we'd either be wrapped up with a search warrant or we wouldn't. But Alan was free to go, so if he wanted to leave, that was his right to do
He was free to go at what point?
the whole time.
Okay. So you knew when you took him back, you said that you had heard some of the interview and that you thought that he might be a little bit upset.
It was possible, yes,
And that's why you wanted him to sit in the back.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for most part, anyone I'm transporting in my vehicle, I have sit in the back. So if anyone is, obviously, it's a secured area, so anyone I'd be making an arrest on would always be in the back. But for, sometimes I'll have general members of the public for a courtesy ride sit in the back as well. It just is an officer safety thing.
But when you went and picked him up, did you ask him to sit in the back?
No, I did not. I actually told him specifically he could sit up front.
And that was to lure him in because you didn't want him to say, hey, I'm not riding in the back.
It was not to lure him, it was just to let him know this was simply an offer to give him a ride to the sheriff's office. That's all it was.
But you knew the outcome of both the end of that interview and you knew what they were going to do while he was being interviewed, right?
Not all of it, no.
You knew they were going to his place and they were going to,
Yes, I knew
Search.
there was gonna be a search warrant conducted, yes.
okay? And so why is it that there was no safety issue going to the interview, but there was a safety issue coming back?
So, on the way to the interview, at this point, we're assessing what someone may or may not react to. So everything is it's a calculated a guess on what may how someone may react. But at this point, I was simply offering a courtesy right to him, so I did not feel there was a heightened risk.
So were you involved in getting the cadaver dogs from wherever they came from to his property?
I was not involved. The only portion I had involvement in was that I was aware that there was a cadaver dog present, and it was waiting at the sheriff's office, and so I remember I went over and had a conversation with, or was part of a conversation with the handler of the cadaver dog, and just letting her know that we were requesting her over there at the residence.
Okay, so this is before the interview?
This is, I want to say during the interview.
Okay, so you pull up with Mr. Bruce towards the sheriff's office. You get him out, escort him into the interview room, and he meets with the detectives. And then you come out of the room, and that's where you meet with the cadaver dog handler.
I didn't even go into the interview room. Alan Bruce met with the detectives outside, just kind of in the parking lot. And then I believe it was partway through the interview during, I think there was a break. I believe Alan requested some water, so I did retrieve some water for him. The detectives asked me to grab a bottle of water for him.
And they called you on the phone for that?
Yeah, or texted. It was a text or a call.
Okay.
Yes.
And they texted you, did they text you anything else?
It was just about, I believe it was simply water and when he was ready to be picked up.
Mm-hmm. And so have you turned those texts over to the prosecuting attorney?
I don't believe I have. No.
Okay. We're going to ask for those, so would you be willing to turn those over willingly, or do we need
Sure.
to subpoena those? Okay.
No.
And so let's get back to the cadaver dog. When is it that you talked to the cadaver dog? You said it was maybe during a break?
I think so. Yeah, it was. I believe I was present with Sergeant Josh Tuttle of ISP, and he may have done most of the talking. I may have just been with him.
Mm-hmm. And when he talked to this cadaver dog, were they just showing up, or what was the story?
As far as I knew, she had arrived. I don't know when she showed up. I just saw that she was out there.
Didn't get a phone call or a text message about that?
No.
And were you out at the scene when the cadaver dog was out at the scene? Were you out at the scene when the cadaver dog was out at the scene?
Once I brought Alan Bruce back over after the interview was complete, the cadaver dog was still there. I do not believe the cadaver dog was working at the time.
And were you notified either via text message or a phone call or talking to some of the other deputies about when they had found some of the bone fragments or some of those other things that they found at the scene?
I do not know if that was notified over my phone or not. There was a lot of communication going on between everyone, whether that was word of mouth or otherwise. So I do not know.
Okay. When you dropped Mr. Bruce off, did you stay with Mr. Bruce until he finally got arrested?
I was, for the most part, I stayed on the property until he was arrested, yes. But there was a large period of time where Mr. Bruce went off with two ISP detectives and talked with him, and I was not privy to that conversation.
Okay. Were you the one that arrested him?
I did put the handcuffs on him, yes.
And that was after they had, obviously, somebody had told you, hey, we now have probable cause to believe that he's involved in this murder.
Yes.
Did you Mirandize him at that time?
I was told he had been Mirandized earlier.
Who were you told that he was Mirandized by?
I believe it was when I was talking to Sergeant Josh Tuttle.
Tuttle. And was that Tuttle that told you that he was Mirandized, or you had just been told by somebody else that Tuttle had Mirandized him?
If memory serves, Tuttle told me that he had been read Miranda.
Okay. From the time that that you picked him up here at the sheriff's office and took him back to his house, he was never really free to leave at any time, right?
No, he was free to leave at any point.
He was free to leave while he was on the property with you?
While he was on the property there. So while we're serving a search warrant for officer safety purposes, if they want to stay on the property, we're going to have to essentially detain them while they're on the property.
So he was detained?
While he was on the property, he requested to go back to his property, so he's not free to walk around the property while we're conducting a search warrant. But if he wanted to leave the property, I believe he was free to go.
At what point did you tell him that as you were pulling up to the property, oh, by the way, we're serving a search warrant on there? Did you inform him of that at any time?
I believe he had already been notified of that on our way back. I believe the ISP detectives had made him aware of such.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Rogers, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Deputy Kelly, thank you. Mr. Rogers, your next witness, please.
Sergeant Josh Tuttle.
Okay.
Could you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
It's Joshua Keith Tuttle, Tuttle.
And are you employed?
I am.
Where are you employed?
The Idaho State Police
And how long have you been employed?
since October of 2004, so just over 20 years.
And what is your role?
I'm currently the sergeant over the investigations office in Idaho Falls,
How many years did you say?
20.
And do you have any training and certification for your position?
I do.
What is that?
So I've attended over 2,300 hours of post-certified training. Those trainings include homicide investigation, crime scene investigation, shooting incident reconstruction, crime scene photography. And I currently hold a post-basic, intermediate, advanced, and master's certificates
And how long have you been a sergeant?
since January of this year.
What were you prior to that?
I was a detective from 2009 until January of this year.
And in May of 2025, were you employed as a sergeant?
Yes, I was.
And were you involved at that time in an investigation with an Alan Bruce?
Yes, I was.
How did you come to that? How did you get to be involved in that?
So we were requested by the Custer County Sheriff's Office to help them investigate a missing persons case.
And what action did you take to get involved?
The first day, we kind of came up, find out what they had already discovered. They removed the vehicle from the hell. I looked inside the vehicle, and then we came up the next day to do some interviews.
So that first day, what day is that?
I believe it was May 11th.
And did you investigate the vehicle?
I looked inside of it, but I didn't forensically examine it, no.
When you talk about the vehicle, what vehicle was it and where was it located?
So it was a red Dodge pickup with a flatbed on it, and it was in the search and rescue building here in Challis. It had been recovered up on a hill.
And so you looked at it while it was here in the city of Challis.
Correct.
Did you find anything throughout that investigation?
When I was looking in the pickup, I observed what to be brain matter on the rearview mirror. And then there was a jacket from a bullet on the passenger side windowsill. However, I didn't collect anything as our forensic lab was gonna come up and process the vehicle.
And did they do that?
They did.
After you discovered, from what your experience was, brain matter, what did you do next?
For that's pretty much all we did that day. The next day we came back up and conducted interviews.
So what day was that?
That would have been May 12th.
So on May 12th, what did you do?
We started off the morning by interviewing Mr. Bruce.
And where did that interview take place?
The initial interview took place at the Search and Rescue Building here in Challis.
And what, did you meet with Mr. Bruce there?
Yes, we did.
And what was your conversation with him?
Basically, we were trying to find the whereabouts of Mr. Shelton.
What, through that conversation, were you able to learn anything for your investigation?
No.
How long did that investigation take, or that questioning interview take?
There was several hours that we talked with Mr. Bruce before we ultimately left and went back to his residence.
You were here at the interview room for several hours?
I was in and out of the interview. At that time, I had other things I was doing. I was trying to get a map, for instance, so he could show us areas that they would go cut firewood.
Did you have any detailed conversation with Mr. Allen Bruce at that interview room?
We had a long conversation, yes.
Okay, what did it consist of?
Pretty much just trying to find out where Mr. Shelton was.
Were you able to find that out?
No.
And what happened when you were not able to find that out?
Someone was being executed on Mr. Bruce's property. We informed him of that, asked him if he wanted to stay there or go back to his property.
Okay. And what did he want?
He wanted to go back to his property to work on his truck.
And was he able to go back to his property?
Yes, he was.
How did he get there?
He was transported by Deputy Ethan Kelly and myself. I rode in the back seat
Backseat of what?
of the patrol car, or patrol truck, I guess it is.
And how long of a ride was it from the interview room to the property?
5 minutes, if that.
And what happened when you arrived at the property?
Once we arrived at the property, I got out of the truck and I walked around to see what had been located on the property, if anything.
Were there other people there?
There were other detectives and some lab personnel.
And were you able to find anything on the property when you got there?
There was also a canine handler on the scene, and I was advised that the canine was trained to alert human remains and had alerted in several spots on the property.
And you learned that through your investigation?
Yes.
What'd you do with that information?
I kind of walked around the property, was shown the area where the dog had indicated, and then I went back and talked to Mr. Bruce.
And where was he located at that time?
He was sitting in the front passenger seat of Deputy Kelly's patrol vehicle.
And when you approached him, what was that conversation like?
It was polite and cordial at first. I asked him basically, tell me man to man what had happened.
And what did he say?
Initially nothing, and then we kind of walked him around and showed him some of the items that had been located on his property, and then he started to confess to what had happened.
Let's back up a little bit. So he's in the patrol truck
Yes.
in the front seat, and you approached him. And how long did that conversation take place while he was in the patrol truck?
Maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
So did he eventually get out?
He did.
Okay. And what happened after he got out?
That's when we started to walk around the property, and I pointed to like the areas that the canine had alerted to.
When you say walk around the property, how far did you walk around the property?
So at first we walked so the property sits on the east side of the highway. There's a gate right there where the law enforcement had parked. We walked from that area to behind the shop. I would say it's probably 30 to 50 yards.
And what happened when you got there?
That's where I pointed out some items on the ground, specifically 2 pieces of what looked like bone and some broken glass.
And did you have that conversation with Mr. Bruce?
Yes, I did.
And what was his response?
That's when he started to tell me that he was gonna go to prison for a long time.
Okay, did you ask him to expound on that?
I did.
And what was that? What was this conversation?
That's basically when he admitted to me that he had shot and killed Mr. Shelton.
Did your conversation end there?
No, he walked us through the whole series of events that had taken place.
Okay, can you walk the court through those events that
Sure.
you talked about?
So, Mr. Bruce stated that him and Mr. Shelton had been having some issues relating to a boat trailer and a generator. On top of that, Mr. Shelton had been stealing items from Mr. Bruce. Mr. Shelton moved away and left his items on Mr. Bruce's property. At one point, Mr. Bruce decided to take those items off of his property that consisted of an RV, so he pushed the RV with a bulldozer to the county road.
Who is he?
Mr. Bruce
Mr. Bruce pushed.
pushed Mr. Shelton's RV off the property with the bulldozer. In the process of that, he damaged the grill of the RV. Mr. Bruce had a pickup that was similar to that RV, so he took the grill out of that pickup to give to Mr. Shelton to kind of appease him and settle the waters. On the day in question, Mr. Shelton had sent text to Mr. Bruce about that he was going to come back. Mr. Bruce said he was threatening him. Mr. Shelton arrived.
Can we clarify that just so we get that correct? You said that sending him text, so he was threatening him. Can you explain who was threatening who?
So, Mr. Bruce said that Mr. Shelton was sending him threatening texts.
Okay.
So then, from that point on, Mr. Shelton came back to the area, pulled into Mr. Bruce's property and sideswiped his red pickup so Mr. Shelton drives a red Dodge with a flatbed, and Mr. Bruce drives a red Dodge without a flatbed. Mr. Shelton came into the property and struck Mr. Bruce's pickup, and then Mr. Bruce got in his orange Ford truck and left the area. He said he went to a friend's house and retrieved a firearm.
When he was talking about this, when he ran into his truck and whatnot, did he say what day it happened or about what time it happened?
To be honest with you, I can't remember if he said what day, but we talked about it happening in the evening when it was dark.
Okay. So the sun was down.
The sun was down.
Okay, and what else after that did he talk about?
So he went to his friend's house, retrieved a firearm, had the friend drop him off in a clump of trees.
And this is Mr. Bruce.
This is Mr. Bruce. Had his friend drop him off in a clump of trees south of the property. Mr. Bruce then kind of moved around the property watching Mr. Shelton. During that time, Mr. Shelton was going between Mr. Bruce's items and Mr. Shelton's RV that was parked on the county road. And he was going back and forth between those two locations inside of his pickup.
Did Mr. Bruce tell you about how long Mr. Shelton was walking around the property?
It was hours long.
Did he mention what friend gave him the firearm?
He did not.
Did he mention to you at all why he had to get a firearm?
He stated that he was afraid of Mr. Shelton.
And then after he's watching him walk around for a few hours, what happened next?
So at one point, Mr. Bruce says that he saw Mr. Shelton parked with his lights illuminating the shop area of Mr. Bruce's property. And he saw Mr. Shelton walking around with a silver handgun. Mr. Shelton got in his truck and left, and then came back. And when he came back, Mr. Bruce confronted him and shot and killed him.
Okay, did he explain to you how he confronted him?
Yes, so he was hiding by some road graders on the property. Mr. Shelton parked behind a white Ford truck that was sitting there. Mr. Bruce came around the excavators with his gun pointed at Mr. Shelton. Mr. Bruce stated that Mr. Shelton picked up his pistol, or he said something to him to the effect of, "You better pull the trigger." He picked his pistol up and Mr. Bruce shot him.
And then what did Mr. Bruce say he did next?
Mr. Bruce said he then removed the body from the truck, dismembered it with a chainsaw, burned it in a burn barrel, and threw it in the river. He also hosed out the interior of the truck.
Your Honor, if I could have this be marked as State's Exhibit 1.
Okay. Mr. Archibald, Mr. Thomas, did you have a chance to look at that?
Yes, sir.
This will be marked State's Exhibit 1. Marshall, you want that?
If the witness could be handed.
Is it marked State's Exhibit 1 and handed to the witness?
Sergeant, do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is that?
That is a picture of Mr. Shelton's body in his pickup.
And where did you get where did that come from?
So Mr. Bruce showed that to Detective Travis Roberts, and Detective Roberts took that picture.
Took a picture from his phone?
From a picture of Mr. Bruce's phone. That's
Has
correct.
that been altered in any way?
No.
The state would move to admit State's Exhibits 1 into evidence.
Mr. Archibald, any objection? Mr. Thomas?
No objection, Your
Thank you. State's Exhibit 1 will be entered into evidence and objection.
And then do you recognize the person in the in the picture?
I do not recognize the person. You can't see their face.
Okay. That's all I have with the exhibit. After he tells you he shoots Mr. Shelton, what did he tell you he did next?
That he removed his body from the truck and dismembered it with a chainsaw.
Did he show you where?
He indicated the area of the property that had taken place, yes.
Well, I guess back up. When he mentioned that he shoots him, did he point out where he shot him?
Yes.
And where was that located at?
That was, so Mr. Shelton was still in his truck parked behind the white Ford.
What county is that in?
That is in Custer County.
Do you know approximately the address of the property?
I don't know I know it's on Highway 93, and it's the dry end of a pivot.
And the individual that told you he shot Mr. Shelton, do you see him here today?
I do.
And where is he sitting and what is he wearing?
He's sitting next to Mr. Thomas. He's wearing an orange shirt and a black vest.
And is that Alan Bruce that we've been talking about?
That is.
And he mentioned that he, what date did he mention he shot him on?
I don't think he gave us a date. I think he said it was Thursday or Friday, in the night and in the morning.
And what day were you there?
We were there on the 12th,
And so when is a Thursday and Friday?
May 8th or 9th.
And through your investigation, were you ever able to verify that it was Mr. Shelton?
As far as the picture,
No, just in the whole investigation through any other evidence?
so there was evidence of the dismemberment that we observed on scene that's been collected and sent for DNA analysis, but we don't have those results back yet.
So you're going off of the admission of Mr. Bruce that it was Patrick Shelton?
Correct. And Mr. Shelton has not been seen or heard of from since this incident.
And then he dismembered the body, and where did he do that at?
On the same piece of property, but it was behind his camp trailer.
And how did he dismember the body?
With a chainsaw.
And then what happened next?
Then he burnt the body and the chainsaw in a burn barrel.
Did you ask him about that, specifically why
We
he was
did.
doing that?
Yes.
What did he respond?
I don't remember his exact response off the top of my head.
Did you record this conversation?
I did.
Have you listened to that recording?
I have.
Can you hear his response to your memory? Can you hear his response on the recording?
So that would have taken place, we asked him about this, remember, after, so there's a kind of a break in the interview where I stopped and called the sheriff's office and the prosecutor's office. We had some discussions about things. And then Detective Roberts had kind of taken over the recorder and was recording the interview. And I believe that all transpired at that point.
Oh, okay, so was Detective Roberts present in that conversation too?
Yes.
Okay, and then what happened next after he tells you he dismembers the body? Did he say anything else?
Other than he burned it in a burn barrel, along with the chainsaw, he took those items to Deer Gulch and threw them in the river. And then he took Mr. Shelton's truck up and abandoned it. Well, he didn't admit to that. When I asked him about that, he just kind of laughed and asked me what I thought.
Okay. So about the truck and stuff, he didn't verify anything?
No.
And how long did that conversation take place?
I think that the initial conversation, if I remember right, was about 35 minutes.
And going back to when he said he shot Mr. Shelton, he was sitting on the property.
Mr. Shelton was, or Mr.
Mr. Bruce was sitting on the property.
Mr. Bruce was hiding behind some road graders on the property.
Did he say what time of day it was?
He said it would have been early in the morning.
And how long did he say how long Mr. Shelton was on the property before he approached him?
He'd been on and off the property for hours.
Did he mention what he shot him with?
That was an AR rifle.
Did you ask him about if he talked to the police or not?
Yes, I did.
What did he say?
He said that he did not.
Did he give you a reason?
Because you shoot, shovel, and shut up. He said that he was from California and he wasn't illegally allowed to have firearms, was one of his reasons for not calling us.
Did he say why he was not allowed to have firearms?
For a previous conviction.
So he knew he was not supposed to have firearms?
Yes.
Did he talk about being in possession of a firearm?
He did.
He admitted that to you?
Yes. He was in possession of the AR that he got from a friend.
And was he in possession on that same 8th day of May?
Correct.
What county did he have possession of that in?
That would again be Custer County.
I'm gonna object, Your Honor, this was for speculation. He's speculating as to whether or not Mr. Bruce actually had a firearm or whether Mr. Bruce had it inside of Custer County.
We can clarify that a little bit.
Mr. Rogers clarify.
Did she ever mention which county he possessed a firearm in?
He mentioned to me that he picked it up from a friend's house, and then that friend dropped him off south of his residence on the highway, which would be in Custer County.
And then what happened next? He talked about dismembering, he talked about
Talk about burning the body
and what
and
happened next?
taking the body and dumping it in the river.
Okay,
And then at that point, he was Mirandized. Other questions were asked of him that he answered to Detective Roberts.
okay. Were you present for the Miranda?
I believe I was standing there, yes.
Did you give the Miranda?
I did not.
So after you spoke with him and walked around the property with him up to a point that he was Mirandized, and then you stopped asking him questions?
Well, at that point, I had other things I was trying to coordinate, and so I was kind of back and forth between talking with Mr. Bruce and talking to people on the phone.
Okay. So it would be Detective Roberts that had more of a conversation with him?
Correct.
I guess, I might have missed this, but he mentioned he dismembered the body by chainsaw,
Yes.
and then did what with it?
Burned it in a burn barrel.
And what did he do with the burn barrel?
He threw it in the river.
Did he say which river?
He said he threw it in the river at Deer Gulch, which would be the Salmon River.
I don't believe I have any further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thomas,
Thank you, Your Honor.
Prosecutor?
Thank you. Detective Tuttle, the first time you met Mr. Bruce was when you were interviewing him at the sheriff's office here in town, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And during the entire time of that interview, while he was at the sheriff's office, you said it took several hours, is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it was an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Hour and a half to 2 hours, okay. And during that hour and a half to 2 hours, was he ever given his Miranda warnings?
No, he was not,
Is there any reason why he was not?
because he was not in custody.
Was he a suspect?
At that point, all we had was a missing person.
Well, he also had a search warrant for his
The
property.
sheriff's office did, yes, correct.
So the sheriff's office had the search warrant, but you weren't involved in that?
And as far as executing the search warrant, I was after my interview with Mr. Bruce.
Was Idaho State Police involved in the search warrant at all?
I believe so, yes.
You had about 10 officers out there, correct?
Between us and the sheriff's office in
No,
total?
Just ISP.
No.
How many ISP were out there?
I think there was 2.
Just you and Mr.
No. I'm
Roberts?
talking about when they first served the search warrant.
Who were they?
That would have been Detective Brown. I'm trying to think, Lieutenant Moulton.
So you have Detective Brown, Lieutenant Moulton, yourself, and Detective Roberts. Is that correct?
And Detective Godfrey.
And who do you have from the lab or from trace evidence that was there?
So the lab brought up, I believe it was 3 people.
So there's Brown, Moulton, Godfrey, you, Roberts. That's 4. Plus 3 people from the lab?
Sure.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 7 people from Idaho State Police. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And how many of those people are stationed here in Challis?
0.
How many of them are stationed in Custer County?
0.
So you had to pull all these people from another county, probably from Idaho Falls, is that correct?
So the detectives came from Idaho Falls, the lab personnel, I'm not sure where they're stationed out of.
Either Pocatello or Boise?
Yeah, or Coeur d'Alene, I highly doubt they brought people down from Coeur d'Alene though.
Okay. But ISP wasn't involved in the search warrant at all, even though all these people
No, I
were on
wasn't
scene?
involved, ISP was involved, yes.
Okay, so now you're clarifying ISP was involved, you just weren't involved?
No.
Okay, that's the answer?
I wasn't, originally was not involved, no, I was interviewing Mr. Bruce.
Okay. And you said the reason that you were not Mirandizing Mr. Bruce was because he wasn't in custody, but now he was a suspect. Is that correct?
So the information I had at that time was that Mr. Shelton's last known location was at that property.
It's a simple yes or no question.
Then no, he wasn't, was he a suspect of?
He was not a suspect?
He was a person of interest in a missing persons case.
Okay. And in that person of interest in a missing persons case, do you generally bring out cadaver dogs from other states?
No. I
No.
don't.
Okay. So it was more than just a missing persons, correct?
At that point, it was a missing persons case that we were trying to work.
Okay. You testified that after the interview, so this interview goes on for about an hour and a half, and then he's released to Deputy Kelly, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor, he was never in detention, so he didn't need to be released.
Just reform it.
Okay. So you interviewed him, and at any time he was free to leave at that point?
Yes.
When you were interviewing for the hour and a half?
Yes.
And so, how is it that you were privy to how he got to the sheriff's office, correct?
Correct.
You specifically asked Deputy Kelly to come and get him. Is that correct? And
Yes.
bring him to you?
Yes.
Because you knew he didn't have a car available?
Correct.
So if he was free to leave, where was he going to go?
He could have walked around town, we'd have gave him a ride back like we did.
Did you tell him that he was free to leave?
I don't think we ever told him he was free to leave, but we never told him he was not free to leave either.
When asked from the prosecution, said you interviewed Mr. Bruce, and you said you didn't learn anything, and it was a several hours long interview. Did I write that down right?
And we learned that he knew Mr. Shelton. So there was nothing of substance to the interview, no.
Okay. So all the information that they got from the search warrant was prior to you interviewing Mr. Bruce.
That's correct.
And one of the reasons you wanted Mr. Bruce off the property was because you knew that they were going to serve a search warrant and you didn't want him on the property when they served the search warrant. Is that correct?
I didn't want to try to interview him during the service of the search warrant, no.
You said that at some point he was in the patrol truck and you said, tell me, man to man, what had happened.
Yes.
And so let's elaborate a little bit on that. What happened? Where were you and where was he? You indicate that he was in
He was
some
in
sort
the
of sheriff's
front seat of the
deputy.
patrol vehicle, and I was standing outside of that, talking to him through an open window.
And where were you on the property?
Yeah, we were on the property.
And that would be Mr. Bruce's property?
Correct.
And he was inside of the truck, the door was open?
The door was closed, but the window was open.
Okay. And you were standing between him getting out of the truck and him not being in the truck?
No, I was standing at the B pillar. Like, if he had opened the door, it wouldn't have hit me.
Okay. And at that point, you said, tell me what had happened, and he just started telling you what had happened?
No. At that point, he said that there was some back and forth about Mr. Shelton not being there, Mr. Shelton not being killed there. And then we went out, we looked at the area that the dog had hit on, and that's when he said he was gonna go to prison for a long time.
Okay. So when you said, tell me man to man what had happened, were you wearing any kind of recording device, or were you recording that conversation at all?
Yes, I was.
And was that a video recording? Were you wearing a body cam?
No, it's an audio recording.
Was it just in your pocket?
Yep.
And the purpose of you concealing that was so that he didn't know that you were recording him?
No, it's just easier for me to have it in my pocket than try to carry it around.
Did you tell him you were recording?
No.
And then you said you took him around the property. You said, hey, come with me. Let's go look around the property. Let me show you some things.
Yep.
And you said that a canine alerted to some area. You said you walked about 30 to 50 yards.
Yes.
Where was the canine alert at?
So it was behind the white Ford pickup. There was two pieces of what appeared to me to be bone and some broken glass from an automobile window.
So when you say behind the Ford pickup, the white pickup,
Mhm.
where was that in relation to the three graders that are still
So
out?
the setup, if you will, of the property, there's a camp trailer and then there's two like semi trailers that have been turned into a shop area.
Right.
And then there's the white pickup and then there's the road graders. And that's all going from away from the highway towards the highway.
Okay. So I know where you're talking about now. I was just at the property this morning. So the white pickup truck, was that at the front of the white pickup truck or was it at the rear of the white pickup
It
truck?
would have been at the rear of the white pickup truck.
And it looks like there's a Winnebago RV that's parked back there. It's a white Winnebago with a green stripe along the back.
I know there's an older RV like south there on the property. And then on that date and time, Mr. Shelton's RV was to the east on the county road.
On the day that you went there?
Yes. There's a couple of old RVs out there. I guess I don't know which RV you're referring to.
It's a Winnebago with a green stripe on it.
Like I
White
said,
Winnebago.
There's
green
a
stripe.
couple of them out there. I don't know which one there's one that was like right behind
Where
the
the
shop
green,
area.
I'm sorry, hold on,
Let's not talk over each other, so Carter can get it.
so there's the three graders,
Mhm.
and then right next to the three graders, there's a white Winnebago with a green stripe on it.
No, right next to the graders was the white pickup.
Okay.
And then the shop area, right behind that shop area, there was a Winnebago or a RV sitting there.
Yeah.
And then there's like a road area, and then there's another RV, if that makes sense.
Okay. And so was this the first RV that was closest to the main road, or is this the second RV that's further away from the main road?
Which RV?
The one that you're talking about, where the dog hit.
So that would have been, the dog hit to it would be the west of that Winnebago. the one right behind the shop.
Okay. So the first RV that's closest to the road, to the main highway there, that's the RV that you're thinking of.
I guess, yes. I'm trying to picture in my mind which one of the two, because there's like I said, there's like a driveway area and then another RV, and I don't know which one of those is closest to the highway.
Okay.
But the area that the dog hit on is where the shop sits, and then you have the old
Right.
motorhome, and then you have the white pickup. It's the area kind of between, just to the west of the shop,
Mm-hmm.
south of the Ford, and west of the Winnebago.
And that's where he admitted to you that he had shot and killed Mr. Shelton.
That's where he said he was gonna go to prison for a long time.
Okay. And then you continued walking down.
We did, we went and walked down past that little Winnebago, there's some burn barrels and a shop vac
Mm-hmm.
that the canine had also hit on.
Now the shop vac, I believe, was on the other side of the two trailers and whatnot, or am I wrong?
I guess, I don't know what you're talking about by the two trailers and whatnot. Are you talking about
The two 18-wheelers or whatever they're
the
called?
shop area?
Yeah.
Is what I've been calling it in my own brain, because that's where they were working on things.
Right.
So when I got there, the vacuum was by the burn barrels.
Okay. And that was back behind where the RV is, at the tail end of the white pickup truck.
Yes.
Okay, on that side. You indicate that Mr. Bruce told you that Shelton had sent him some threatening text messages,
Yes.
and you have since been able to download both Mr. Bruce's phone as well as Mr. Shelton's phone. Is that correct?
No. Mr. Shelton's phone was never recovered.
Okay. You were able to download Mr. Bruce's phone?
I believe it was downloaded.
Okay.
Again, that wasn't my part of this case.
Did you confirm that text messages were sent from Mr. Shelton to Mr. Bruce?
I know there was text messages sent, I just don't know the content of those messages.
So you haven't read the content of the messages?
No, I have not.
Okay. And you didn't follow up on that? Do you know if anybody else followed up on that?
I know that the day of, we asked Mr. Bruce if we could charge his phone so he could show us those messages. And that's when he showed Detective Roberts the picture.
Okay. So you charged the phone?
Yes, we did.
So did you look at the messages?
That day I did not. I have not seen those messages.
Okay. When you saw the picture, you saw the picture on the phone, right?
I saw the picture of the picture.
Okay. So you didn't see the picture of the day that he showed, the day that he allegedly confessed to all this?
No.
Mr. Bruce also indicated that Shelton came into his area or his on his property and hit his truck, his red truck.
Correct.
Okay. Did you follow up on that? Did you look at the recent damage, if there was recent damage to the truck?
I did. In fact, Mr. Bruce kind of walked and pointed to us because the truck had some other dents and dings in it that weren't associated with this.
And so was that consistent?
Yes, it was consistent with the truck being sideswiped.
So his story was consistent in that respect?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you review the phone pings that were on Mr. Bruce's cell phone?
No.
There was some conversation between you and the prosecutor, and I didn't want to interrupt, but somebody said, you better pull the trigger. And I thought that you alluded to the fact that that was Bruce saying that.
No, that's what Mr. Bruce told me Mr. Shelton said.
Okay, so Mr. Shelton was the one that said, you better pull the trigger.
Yes.
Okay, and at that point, Mr. Shelton pulled his gun up and pointed it towards Mr. Bruce, and that's when Mr. Bruce shot him.
That's what Mr. Bruce told me, yes.
Okay. And in reviewing the evidence from the truck, did you review the evidence in the truck?
I looked at the truck the night of May I think it was May 11th, that Sunday night, I looked at the truck while it was in the search and rescue building.
Okay. And was that consistent with someone being shot in the truck?
It was cleaner than I thought it would be, if that makes sense. Like, I would expect there to be more obvious signs of somebody being shot in the truck.
So you said you found brain matter, or what you thought might be brain matter.
Yeah, on the rearview mirror, there was a little speck of what looked like brain matter to me. And then on the passenger side window, the window was busted out, but there was the copper jacket of a bullet sitting on the windowsill.
Okay. So the evidence that was found inside the truck, was that you that found the brain matter?
I saw the brain matter, the lab collected all of that.
Okay. And to your knowledge, has that been tested?
To my knowledge, it's in the process of being tested.
Okay. And you saw the photo of the, can we just, Your Honor, may we hand Detective Tuttle the photograph of the State's Exhibit 1? Thank you. So when you viewed the truck days later, was it consistent with how the truck looks in the photograph?
Yes and no. There's aspects of it that look very familiar to how it looked, and then there's other things that are not there that are in this photograph.
Okay, other than the gun, is there anything, and the body, is there anything else that's out of place?
So if you look kind of on the right shoulder of what I assume is Mr. Shelton, you can see what appears to be a red stain.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that in the truck.
But I mean, this isn't a great picture, correct?
No, it's not.
I mean, it could be just, frankly, it could be,
Could be transmission fluid, I don't know. There's a red stain that wasn't there.
right?
And then I believe there's, like, when I saw the truck, there was some towels and things on the seat that I don't see in this photograph.
Okay. As far as the murder goes, the only evidence you have of the murder is the trace evidence and the confession, alleged confession of Mr. Bruce. Is that correct?
Trying to think back through this case. I guess that depends on your definition of the trace evidence.
Okay. Let me just go through it real quick. You have a firearm that was used?
We do not, no.
No. Okay. You have a body?
No.
You have the burn barrel?
No.
How many rivers are there that run through Custer County?
I do not know.
Did you search any of the rivers as far as trying to find this burn barrel?
We attempted to search, well, I guess I'd say search and rescue, and the sheriff's office attempted to search, but the water was too high and too fast. I know that one of our detectives walked up and down the borrow pit looking for things. Search and rescue went out and searched the borrow pit looking for things. But as far as diving in the river, it was deemed unsafe.
When you say the burrow pit, which burrow pit are you thinking of?
I'm talking about the space between Highway 93, I think it is, and the Salmon River from Deer Gulch back towards Challis.
Okay. And that's probably what, 10, 15 miles?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I just know that they searched several miles of the riverbank.
But to your knowledge, the only river. So I'm reviewing the affidavit of probable cause that you signed. Did you write this?
I did, yes.
And sometimes you put things in quotations. On page, looks like the third page of the affidavit, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth paragraph down, you quote, "You better pull the trigger, mother effer," and pulled up his 45, again in quotes. Was that from your memory, or was that from your recordings?
That was done with both, if that makes, like, I remember him saying certain portions of that, and I can't remember now if I reviewed the recording while I was writing that affidavit or not.
Okay. But you have since reviewed the recording,
Yes.
and nothing in your affidavit is inconsistent with the recordings?
No.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for this detective.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Rogers, anything else?
Yes, just a couple of follow-up questions. So Mr. Thomas asked you about having some of the evidence, so you don't have a chainsaw? Is that
No,
right?
we don't.
And why is that?
I was told it was burned with the body and thrown in the river.
Who told you that?
Mr. Bruce.
And you were told that you don't have a body. In your experience, through your training and experience through homicides, do you always have a body?
No, you don't always have a body.
So for this case, is there something besides a body that would show it's Patrick Shelton?
Yes.
What is that?
So on the property, there's a camper, one of the many campers is parked parallel to the shop area. And then between it and a set of Connex containers that are also turned into another little shop area. And along that camp trailer, there is a bunch of what appears to be human remains splattered or spattered across the side of it.
Did you take a sample from that?
The lab did.
And we don't have results for that yet?
We do not.
And then Mr. Thomas asked you, or stated that you don't have a gun for one of the elements. But you mentioned in your testimony there was a jacket left on,
A bullet jacket.
can you explain what that is?
Sure, so the projectile point portion of a bullet, when you fire it, what comes out of the barrel is typically lead encased with copper or brass. You can get them with steel and all kinds of other things. But the jacket is that outer piece that's usually copper that the inner lead kind of comes away from when it goes through something.
And then you mentioned when you looked at the picture, there was a blood stain on the sheet,
On the seat?
seat. I'm tired. Did you talk to Mr. Bruce about that blood stain not being there, or?
No, I did not.
Okay, did you talk to anything about him, about the belongings in the truck, or the condition of the truck?
We talked to him about the firearm that was in the truck in the picture.
Okay, what did he say about it?
He said he threw it out of the window while he was driving back from disposing of the body.
Okay, and the firearm that he used, did he talk about it at all?
He said he threw it out of the vehicle as well.
And your testimony to Mr. Thomas was that you expected it, or you saw it as cleaner than you thought it was going to be, the scene.
Yes.
Did you discuss that with Mr. Bruce at all?
Yes, we did.
And what did he respond?
That he cleaned it up
Did he tell you how he cleaned it up?
with bleach and a shop vac and a rake.
Did you do that with the property and the truck, or just the property?
I believe he said he hosed the truck out.
Did he say why he was hosing the truck out or cleaning with bleach?
I don't think he specifically said anything as to why he was doing it.
And then Mr. Thomas asked you about a phone pinging for Mr. Bruce's phone. Did you also ping, through your investigation, was Mr. Shelton's phone ever pinged?
Yes, it was.
And where did it ping to?
The last place it pinged to was Mr. Bruce's property.
And at the point, there was some discussion about Miranda. Just to clarify a little bit, at what point during this whole entire investigation did you feel like it was necessary to arrest Mr. Bruce?
After he had basically told me what happened and kind of disproved to me that he was acting in self-defense.
Okay, so his claim was that he was acting in self-defense?
Correct.
And were you listening to those pleas of self-defense?
I was.
And when he's telling you self-defense, is that why you didn't arrest him at the very beginning?
Yes.
Through your experience in homicides, have you ever dealt with bleach before?
I have, as far as, I guess, yes, I've seen people use bleach to try to clean up crime scenes.
I have no further questions.
And Your Honor, I apologize, I know this is highly irregular, I can recall Mr. Tuttle, but if it's okay, may I read cross?
Yeah, I was gonna allow you to request, because I give you each your fair shot.
Very good.
Now, if you have questions, then I'll give Mr. Rogers a chance, and I
Okay.
try to keep it fair. Mr. John Thomas, do you have any recross?
A little bit, Judge.
Go ahead.
So, with regards to the Miranda warnings, these warnings weren't given until after you had been on the property for some time and after you said, tell me what happened man to man.
Yes.
So when you said, tell me man to man what had happened, you already knew, or you already in your mind thought, hey, this guy killed this other guy.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
I'll sustain.
When was it that Mr. Bruce was telling you these pleas of self-defense?
Pretty much from the beginning of his, after we walked over and I pointed out the area and he said he's gonna go to prison for a long time, that's when he started to kind of tell me about the self-defense pleas.
Okay. But at this point, when you showed him the evidence that you had,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, man, I'm gonna go to prison for quite a long time, it didn't go in your mind like, hey man, I probably should Mirandize this cat before he, says something that he
No, it did not.
didn't cross your mind at all?
Nope.
In the 20 years of your experience at the Idaho State Police, they never taught you that you needed to Mirandize someone when you felt like they were going to say something to you that might incriminate them?
No, I've never been taught that.
Okay.
I've been taught to issue Miranda warnings when somebody was in custody and being interviewed.
Okay. And your definition of in custody,
Objection, Your Honor, let's, moving into a suppression argument, that under Rule 5.1, the courts have clearly stated that it is time for trial. A trial court is a suppression argument. Here, we're just talking about probable cause.
I'm gonna allow the question, but at the preliminary hearing, I listened to the argument and I would consider, I consider it suppressible, and I don't listen or consider that. So I'll allow the question.
okay. So what in your mind is the point where you make the decision that this person is going to say something that triggers you to have to give them Miranda? What puts them into custody?
And for this particular case, for me, what kind of goes, okay, yeah, he's not free to leave, is when he explains to me that he cut him up with a chainsaw and burned the body. Because let's say that what he claims is true, that Mr. Shelton was there with a gun, and he has every right to defend himself.
So you gave the Miranda warnings after he said that he had dismembered the body by chainsaw?
So the Miranda warnings were given after he had walked us through the scene and explained everything. and then the Miranda was given. And as far as him mentioning the chainsaw, I can't remember if that was before or after the Miranda rights were given.
Mr. Rogers, please call your next witness.
Detective Travis Roberts.
Thank you. When Mr. Roberts gets settled, we may begin.
Could you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Travis Roberts, Roberts.
And are you employed?
Yes,
Where are you employed?
Idaho State Police,
And how long have you been employed there?
7 years.
And what is your position?
I'm a detective.
How long have you been a detective?
In total, about 2 years.
Where were you the prior 5 years? What was your,
So I was in District 4, which is the Twin Falls area. I was a trooper for 4 years, and then I went to investigations. Moved to District 6, which is Idaho Falls, last June, and I was on patrol for about 9 months, and then a spot opened up back on the investigations team, so I joined that.
and what are your duties as a detective currently?
I investigate crimes, violent crimes, trafficking, things like that.
What types of training and certification do you have for that position?
I completed, so 7 years ago when I started, I completed ATC 47. I've gone through numerous drug and trafficking courses, trainings, primarily was my function in District 4. I've done read interview, some basic homicide investigations, mostly like in-house type of stuff.
And were you employed in those duties in the month of May of 2025?
Yes, sir.
Were you involved in a investigation with an Alan Bruce?
Yes.
And can you explain to the court where you picked up that investigation at? Like where you picked up in the role?
Yes, so initially my role was executing the search warrant on his property. And then later on, I was with Sergeant Tuttle and speaking with Alan.
And you got to speak with Alan himself?
Yes, sir.
With Alan who?
With Alan Bruce.
Okay. Do you see Alan Bruce here in the courtroom today?
I do.
And can you explain for the record where he is sitting and what he is wearing?
He's sitting to my far right, and he's wearing an orange suit with a vest.
And that is the man you spoke with in May?
Yes.
And what day in May, do you remember?
Oh, gosh, May 12th.
So your recollection is May 12th of
Yeah.
2025?
Of this year, yeah.
And what conversation did you have with Mr. Bruce?
We spoke to Bruce about Patrick being on his property. And he walked Sergeant Tuttle and I around his property and pointed out the events that happened and the locations that happened. Afterwards, I spoke with Bruce several times, and he continued to share what happened after the incident and talk to me about those types of things.
Okay, let's back up and talk about those incidences.
Okay.
At what point, well, first of all, where is this located at?
It's on his property.
Where is that?
I don't know the exact address,
Okay,
but it's the property that we were on doing the search warrant for. He lives in his camper. He's got several connexes and semi-truck trailers out there.
what county is it in?
This county.
How far away from Challis is it?
It's in Challis. It's just a couple miles outside.
A couple of miles?
Yeah, maybe 2 miles.
Outside of Challis City?
Correct.
Okay. And when you show up at that property to talk with him, how did that discussion begin with him out there?
Very cordial. We just said that we needed help understanding a couple things that didn't make sense to us. He walked us around the property. We pointed out some locations that we were curious about and asked if he'd be willing to share information and tell us what happened, and then he told us what he did.
Was he willing to share that information?
Yes, he was.
What information did he share?
So we had a cadaver dog out there that had alerted in certain spots, and I had seen some bone fragments out there. And so I told Sergeant Tuttle about it, said, hey, the canine the cadaver dog alerted in these two spots, alerted by shop vac and a dumpster. I told him that I had seen a broken window inside the dumpster that I believed could be part of Patrick Shelton's vehicle because it was missing a window on the passenger side. Mr. Bruce said that he would walk us through it. He came out, he walked over there, we pointed out the area that we were questioning and that we had concerns about, and he told us what had happened.
What did happen?
So him and Patrick had some problems. They'd been having problems for about 2.5 months. And Patrick had showed up. Mr. Bruce said that he had seen Patrick with a gun and believed that Patrick had it out for him. He called a friend and went to that friend's house and picked up a rifle. That friend then,
When you say he had a friend, who is he?
oh, Mr. Bruce.
Okay.
So
Mr. Bruce had a friend?
Mr. Bruce had a friend, yes. He went over to that friend's house, picked up a rifle, and then his friend brought him back.
Oh, a little bit slower, please.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Went over to that friend's house.
Went over to the friend's house. The friend then brought him back and dropped him off by some trees, I believe just south of the property. And Mr. Bruce told us that he had a rifle, some binoculars and night vision goggles. And he just made his way around his property. He had hid in sagebrush. He had been watching what Patrick was doing. He said that he saw Patrick go in and out of his property several times, and he said that he could see a gun. He described the gun as a silver .45. I took that to mean a .45 caliber. He watched Patrick for several hours, and then went to confront Patrick. Patrick was in his truck next to some road graders, and Mr. Bruce was hiding by the road graders, and he said he stepped out, he raised his rifle, and he said to Patrick, "Do you want some of this?" Mr. Bruce then stated that Patrick said something to the effect of, "You better shoot me, motherfucker," and then Patrick grabbed his gun, and then Bruce shot him.
Okay, and then what did Bruce say happened after that?
So throughout the remaining of the day, after he shot him, he said that he had cleaned up the mess. He had sprayed down the inside of his vehicle, Patrick's vehicle, to spray down any of the evidence. He picked up the shell that he had used, that he fired, and he used an AR-15. And then he said he burned the body in a barrel. He told us that he burned the body, and then he had taken over to Deer Gulch, and he had dumped it over the bridge, and then he had tossed the rifle that he used, and then the pistol that Patrick had, he tossed it out the window when he was coming back into town.
While he was driving?
Correct.
When he's telling you all of this, who was all present?
Sergeant Tuttle and I were both present at that point.
Okay. And then, did the investigation end there?
No.
Okay, what happened next?
So after that, I stayed with Mr. Bruce, and Sergeant Tuttle went and spoke to a couple people, and I believe he called you. Sergeant Tuttle called me over to the vehicle where he was at. He said, "Hey, go Mirandize Bruce." So I went over there. I waited for Sergeant Tuttle to come out. I didn't have my Miranda card, and I prefer to read it, so I did a quick Google search, got an image, and I read it off of there.
I'm sorry, please.
Sorry, I apologize.
I prefer to read it.
I prefer to read it, so I Googled it, pulled up an image, and I just read it off of the image that I had pulled up.
And then at that point, did the investigation stop?
It did not.
Okay, what happened next?
Sergeant Tuttle asked if Mr. Bruce would be willing to share any more information with him, if he'd still be willing to talk to us.
And was he?
He was.
What did he say next?
So we asked where the body was, and Mr. Bruce said, "I already told you where it was." And then at one point, he was making a comment, and then he stopped himself and said, "I cut him up." Lieutenant Moulton then asked, "Well,